Alright fellas, what's going on? Denonu here, the man with the most biggest and the most blackest privilege on YouTube. And we're back with another commentary video. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Deadpool, Mr. Wade Wilson. You know, the copycat clone of Deathstroke from Marvel Comics. And I just got finished seeing it, you know, like an hour ago. And it coming from a comic book fan, like, you know, like I would consider myself a hardcore comic book fan, but I'm not a collector by any means. I used to collect them when I was little, but now that I'm an adult, I don't really collect them, but I still read up on them and follow all, you know, all the goings on and stuff like that. But coming from somebody like myself, this was probably the most faithful comic book adaptation they've ever had on the big screen. Just gonna say it. I only really had 3 or 4 minor gripes with the movie. They did change a lot of things when it comes to Deadpool's character. One being, he wasn't as well, let me just say this. Going into it, I knew that they wasn't going to make him 100% like he is in the comic books. Because that's too, I'm not going to say it's too out there to do in a movie. You can. But that's a lot of lines you got to cross. And I knew that from a company standpoint, they wasn't going to do a lot of things. There's a lot of things surrounding, you know, Deadpool and his supporting cast of characters in the comic books. And let's say how they get to where they are. That's kind of, you know, something I can understand why they would cut it out. And that's pretty much what I expected them to do in the movie. As far as his character, probably it's spot on, probably besides like 1 or 2 things. During the movie, and oh, by the way, this is gonna have spoilers, so you know, I've never been one to hold my tongue, so just to, you know that one guy who's gonna comment, oh, you should have warned us, this is your warning. Basically, going into it, I figured they would try to make him the noble superhero, or let's say anti-hero, whatever you want to call him. And that's pretty much what they did. Deadpool, besides being a cool, wacky character, he is an asshole. He is a dick. He is mentally unstable. And that's the side of his character that I figured they were going to cut out of the movie. And they pretty much did. He didn't have a lot of fourth wall breaking moments. You had him in there, don't get me wrong. I mean, even like that intro scene, like normally, like when the intro starts during the movie, it'll be like Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool or so and so. It, you know, Deadpool didn't start out like that. You pretty much had a CGI image scene showing like Ryan Reynolds, and it was like he's hot, or it was like a British villain, or what else did it say? Rich, you know, promoted by rich douchebags. Like it never said anybody's name. It would just like describe them in comedic and funny ways, and I thought that was like fucking hilarious. I loved it. But basically, character wise, he was pretty much an honorable, I guess I mean, if you want to call him that, anti-hero. They didn't really, you know, keep him, you know, wacky, super insane, talking to yourself kind of sort of. They didn't do none of that. I don't remember any point in the movie where he actually talked to himself. I mean, I guess if we, the audience, would, you know, if you consider that, you know, talking to yourself, but I'm talking about like in the comic books, he will have like full blown like multiple personality disorder. And that's something that you know, that they just didn't have in the movie. So I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, you know, as a hardcore fan, I gotta mention, you know, a few things like that. But other than that, it was a really, really great movie. They definitely did carry the character like he's supposed to be. You know, they didn't try to, you know, shy away from, you know, who he is or what he does. Another thing that they changed was his healing factor in the movie was far slower than what it is in the comic books. He doesn't even heal as fast as I would say Wolverine does. Maybe when it comes to small stuff, but I know in the movie he cut off his own hand, and that hand took like hours to grow back. Like it wasn't like damn near instantaneous like it is in the comic books. But Not really faulting that. I mean, it made interesting jokes. Let me just say that. They played it off well, and they had a lot of, they had like a masturbation joke where he was like, "I'd probably feel huge in this small hand." So, I mean, I don't mind them toning down the healing. I really don't. It's something that, they didn't have to do, but if they can make it interesting, hey, look, I'm all for it. Because, his healing factor, by being the type of character he is, they can change it on a whim anytime they want in any future sequel and stuff. And they also changed his origin too. I thought that they would at least, going into it, like reference, Wolverine and the whole Weapon X program, but they didn't. I mean, apparently Deadpool in this is a straight up mutant, and super healing was his latent mutant healing abilities. Because in the comics, Deadpool gets his super healing from Wolverine. They try to transpose it onto Wade Wilson, and at first it doesn't work. But then once Ajax, pulls his heart out, his healing factor kicks in, activates, saves his life from the cancer, but also, causing his skin to be all messed up because the cancer kind of like super grows and stuff. But his healing factor keeps it in check, so it's not killing him. Whereas in this, they still have the cancer, it's still killing him, but Ajax is like, look, I'm just gonna activate any, potential mutancy that you have by giving you this serum. That's pretty much all, all the explanation you got as far as his powers. You didn't even know who they were, so you had a lot of story that was kind of, I guess they didn't have to tell it given, the story of the movie. But as somebody like myself, I would have liked to seen a more better story in addition to what we already got, and it doesn't have to be much. I mean, you could just make a reference to like the Weapon X program. You don't have to say, hey, look, we got this specifically from Wolverine. You don't got to go and do that. All you got to do is you could just say, like, you can have a scene of Ajax and let's say the guy from the trailer, the guy in the suit. I don't think he had a name. I know Wade called him Agent Smith. So, I mean, I'm not, spoiling anything too big because he dies like probably like 45 minutes into the movie. But basically, all you had to do was have a scene with him, because going from what the movie tells you, Ajax is the one who makes this serum or this drug that they can give to people to, trigger their mutant gene. And all they could have said is that, hey, look, where'd you get this, serum? You could just say Ajax modified it, right? And then he could be talking with the guy in the suit, and they can be like, oh yeah, like, where'd you get the basis for this, for this formula? Now that I tricked it out, I want to know where it started out from. And all the man in the suit, could have said was just, we just got friends in Canada. Don't worry about where it came from. Just mention Canada or mention Weapon X or something, that lets, because then at that point you're keeping the same chronological history, that's coming from the comic books. I'm not saying it has to be just like the comic books. That's not where I'm going with that. But Deadpool, Weapon X, and Wolverine have a lot of history. For those of you who don't know, Weapon X, they messed up a few people. Wolverine being the 10th one. You got Deadpool, Wolverine, Sabretooth, the guy with the yellow armor from the 90s cartoon. Like, it was a bunch of people. X-23 was also a derivative of not the same people, but of the same organization, but just like another cell of it. You have a lot of history there that they're just completely ignoring. Now, maybe they'll explain it in the sequels. Who knows? From what I hear, they already greenlit a sequel. Hell, even at the end of the movie, the teaser thing at the end of the trailer, Deadpool was like, yo, we're making a fucking sequel. Cable's gonna be in it. So, I mean, love that ending scene, by the way. He came out there on the road with the mask on, was like, what are you still doing here? Go home. Movie's over. It was like, oh, by the sequel, by the way, we're making a sequel, Cable's gonna be in it. Now go. Get the hell out of here. Thought that was funny as hell. But besides the changes to Deadpool's character and everything, it didn't take away any of his personality. You know, besides him, let's say, not being as crazy as he is in the comic books, he's kind of sort of a, I'm not going to say one-dimensional character, but it's the same joking personality of the side of Deadpool without him being the crazy side of Deadpool. And I think it worked. I figured they was going to do something like that because, like I said at the beginning of this commentary, Deadpool gets a lot dark, you know, when it comes to a lot of aspects to his character. And I didn't think they were going to delve into that. They want to keep him likable. So, like, there's a lot of things that's in the movie that's not the same way in the comic books. Like the, I forget her name, but the woman he lives with. In the movie, he just needed a roommate. So he, you know, made a Craigslist post and she responded, you know, to his post, and that's how she's living with him. In the comic books, I think if I remember right, he kidnaps her and like keeps her locked up in the closet and like tortures her and you know, mentally abuses her and shit like that. So I understand why they cut that out. You can't really have that in a movie. I mean, you could, but then that's going to raise a lot of red flags to people, you know, and that's, you know, not going to make Deadpool the likable character that he is, you know. Also, for the rated R rating, don't get me wrong, this movie was bloody and you seen body parts get chopped off and stuff, but it wasn't all that gory. I was expecting at least one or two gore moments where he, let's say, gets eviscerated or, you know, gets an arm chopped off or something like that, right? But besides him cutting off his own hand, and I mean, he didn't even get shot up a whole lot in the movie either. It was weird. Because in the comic books, when you read the comic books, Deadpool gets shot up a lot. Like, he gets torn every which way, damn near immortal. But in the movie, they didn't do none of that. Like in the beginning, that highway scene, that's like the first scene in the movie. That was badass. He got shot up. He cut off his own hand, and you know, the whole fight scene, the way that they planned that out and, you know, and executed that from the little teaser thing that they released a couple years ago. Excellent. Fox, you did your damn thing with that. Do more of that shit. But the gore wasn't there. Like in like the rest of the movie, yeah, he may have got shot a few times, but it wasn't like, you know, he was getting messed up all the time like it was in comic books. But granted, you don't need to have, you know, something like that. So I'm not knocking it for that. I'm just mentioning it because this is a review. A couple of other things that's weird. Story-wise, they didn't kind of dive into anybody else. To be honest, I figured they wouldn't. They want to keep the movie centered around Deadpool and his character. So I figured you wasn't going to get no backstory, you know, behind Ajax or his right-hand woman or what they were really doing, or, you know, any kind of, you know, thing with that. They didn't explain none of that. The only thing that they, you know, were doing was they were creating people with superpowers so that they can auction them off and sell them to the highest bidder for money. That's all they were doing. And you got that premise within the first 5 minutes of the movie. It was like the first thing you saw. So I figured they wasn't gonna do any, you know, like a whole lot with that, because like I said, they want to keep it around Deadpool because he's the star of the movie, you know, for the most part. Things I liked. Love the costume. Love it. I think it's probably the most authentic costume they've ever had in a superhero movie. Probably besides, you know, the Marvel movies and stuff with Captain America and Iron Man and stuff like that. Comedy was on point. I'm not somebody who's into comedy a whole lot. Don't get me wrong, I love comedy, but comedy with me is like hit or miss. I tend to like the toilet humor of, let's say, Family Guy, rather than the kind of sort of scripted humor of like Seinfeld or The Simpsons. Although I can sort of appreciate that kind of thing. This movie had a lot of toilet humor. So if you're a fan of, let's say, comedy, and you're like, oh, I heard this movie's funny, the movie is fucking hilarious. It is a great funny time. But if you're not a fan of that style of humor, then I don't think it's going to be that funny to you. Not every joke hit with me, but like 98% of them did. I mean, the movie was like, I was laughing and clapping the whole time I was in the theater. Even prime example, before the movie, you had the Batman and Superman movie trailer play. You also had the X-Men movie play. And I was waiting, you know, like after the trailers, I was just listening, you know, seeing, you know, if the audience would be pumped for those movies. But no, nobody clapped, nobody talked. It was just like, you know, everybody was just silent. But when the Deadpool movie was over, everybody in the theater was clapping. That's how good it was. And everybody in the theater was waiting, you know, for that end credit scene that they were, you know, expecting, but not knowing if one was going to be there. So that shows you the different kind of movie it is, you know. And the theater was surprisingly packed too. Like, I wasn't expecting a lot of people to go see Deadpool, because a lot of people don't know who he is. They may know what he looks like, or they might know his name, but they don't. If you don't read comic books or follow any of the, you know, the animated cartoons or Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I mean, you don't know who this guy is, you know. So I was surprised to see the turnout, but then again, they had that huge marketing campaign, so I guess everybody probably knows what this movie's about, even if you don't know the character. Speaking of things I liked, Colossus and what's her name, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, love them in the movie. Every time they was on scene, Deadpool and Colossus was funny as hell. Like, I remember when he first came up on that highway scene. Basically, the guy who Deadpool was trying to kill got away, and he got pissed and tried to fight Colossus. And he punched Colossus, broke all the bones in one hand. Punched him with the other hand, broke all the bones in that hand. Tried to do like a spinning side kick up to the side of Colossus' head, broke his leg in two different places. It was fucking hilarious. Also, they had a scene with, like, you know, the X-Mansion and stuff a couple times that I wasn't expecting that. Like, they showed Colossus within like the first 2 minutes of the movie. I thought that they were gonna come up like halfway in and then maybe at the ending, you know, credit scene, but they didn't. They kind of went right out the gate, was like, oh, Deadpool is, you know, they basically saw Deadpool, you know, causing that scene on the bridge on the news, and was like, yo, we got to go get him. And, you know, they even had the Blackbird and everything in there. So I really wasn't expecting that. At least not right out the gate. I mean, they didn't cross over nothing yet. But, you know, it was nice to see. I love the way they did Colossus. Colossus looked on point. I mean, he practically shitted on the way he looked in the other movie. From what I understand in this one, he is completely CG. Don't have a problem with it at all. He had a fight scene with Ajax's right hand woman who also had super strength, and that was a funny fight. They beat each other all around this junkyard type area, and I want to say they even kept the personalities the same, because during the fight he threw her through like a pile of junk, and her shirt got like half torn off, so she had like one of her breasts hanging out. And Colossus, being the respectable guy he is, you know, looked away from her, told her like, yo, look, you know, your titties hanging out, you know, and and then she took advantage of that by punching him in the dick. And then he like beat the hell out of her. But great funny movie. I can't really say more about it, because it's like I might even go see it again. That's how good it is. I was trying to find a lot of flaws with the movie, you know, thinking like, okay, like, you know, that way I can do this review, but I can't really find a lot of flaws. I mean, the only flaws I could see is story wise, they didn't go in depth to everybody. It's pretty much a typical revenge type story. Guy screwed you over, kidnapped your girl at the end of the movie, I gotta go get her. One thing that surprised me though, I thought, you know, his girl was gonna die at the end of the movie, but she lived and he actually got with her. So that was kind of, you know, That threw me for a loop because Deadpool doesn't have a good love life in the comic books. There's been chicks that he's interested in, but he never gets with them. You know, that's kind of like a core of his character, where he's like, you know, too ugly, you know, to be in a relationship with somebody. So I don't know how that's gonna play out. It would be cool if, like, in the sequel, I think his girl Vanessa, let's say, like, she thought she can get with him at the end of the movie, but then, like, after a while, the way he looked got to her, so he, you know, they never hooked up. And he got with, I remember he was hitting on this one X-Man in the comic book. I forget which one it was, but I remember there was, like, one of the new X-Men, you know, that he was interested in and cared about. It would be interesting in the sequels and the movies if they want to cross that over. If they do put that character in, like, let's say an X-Men movie coming up, then, you know, they can have that, you know, she can have that relationship with Deadpool and stuff. So also the backstory with him and his girlfriend, telling how they met and stuff like that, and, you know, where their relationship, you know, was headed before the cancer kicked in. Love that whole scene of them, like, having sex constantly and all that stuff. That was, they had a lot of comedy in that too. Hilarious, funny as hell. But yeah, guys, I mean, that's about it. I mean, I can't really say any more about it. I mean, if you're a fan of Deadpool, go see this movie. If you are a fan of the comic book, go see this movie. If you're looking for just a funny movie that's fun and entertaining, that doesn't take itself seriously, go see this movie. I mean, it's a nice feel-good movie. It really is. It ends on a happy note. They kill the bad guy in a fun, jokey way. You got Colossus talking to him like, "Oh, wait, don't kill him. You have to be in, you know, being a hero is about saving people and all it is." And next thing you know, he just blows his brains out. So I mean, you have a lot of funny moments, a lot of laughs, and this movie to me it wasn't dramatic by any means like that, but it was more funny than it was a serious movie. But it did have, like, a couple serious moments in it. So, but this movie was definitely entertaining. So if you guys are let's say remotely interested in seeing this movie, go see it. It's funny. You'll probably, you know, enjoy yourself if you're not a complete dick, or if you know, aren't one of those people that aren't born with a funny bone in their body. But as always, video's like 20 minutes long. I swear I went into this expecting it was going to be like 6 minutes, but you guys know how I get down. My name is Denonu, the man with the biggest and the most blackest privilege on YouTube, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.